Wait, Johnny Depp might actually return as Captain Jack Sparrow? After everything that's happened? Yep, you heard that right. Remember the courtroom drama that took over the internet? The headlines, the memes, the cancelled roles? It really felt like Johnny Depp's Hollywood days were over. Studios distanced themselves, brand partnerships vanished, and fans around the world were left wondering if the actor they grew up watching had just taken his final bow. It was a whirlwind of emotion and controversy, and for many it marked the tragic fall of a once untouchable superstar. But now something strange is happening. Whispers are growing louder, rumors that once seemed like hopeful chatter from Die Hard. Fans are starting to feel more real. And believe it or not, Pirates of the Caribbean 6 might just be the ship that brings Johnny Depp back into the spotlight. And hey, if you've ever felt like people counted you out too soon or like your past, mistakes defined you, you're not alone. Johnny's story might sound like Hollywood gossip, but it's also a surprisingly relatable lesson in redemption. His journey has shown us the brutal cost of fame and the fragile nature of public perception. It's a cautionary tale, yes, but also one of resilience and the power of staying true to who you are, even when the world turns its back on you. Stick around, because this story has twists, rumors, and just maybe a comeback worth cheering for. Let's rewind a little. There was a time when Johnny Depp wasn't just another actor. He was a phenomenon. He had a mystique, an edge, a kind of poetic darkness that made audiences fall in love with even the strangest characters he portrayed. From Edward Scissorhands to Ichabod Crane, from Hunter S. Thompson to Willy Wonka, he made weird cool and turned unconventional characters into icons. But it was Jack Sparrow that redefined his career. When he first appeared on screen in The Curse of the Black Pearl, stumbling, slurring, and swaggering, nobody had seen anything quite like it. The role was risky, eccentric, and unlike anything Disney had ever approved for a leading man in a blockbuster, yet it worked. It worked beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Jack Sparrow became the soul of the Pirates franchise. Without him, it simply didn't feel the same. Then came the bombshell, Depp's messy and highly public breakup with actress Amber Heard, followed by allegations of abuse and a long, drawn-out legal battle that played out in front of the entire world. The UK libel case against The Sun and then the US defamation trial against Heard were not just courtroom dramas. They were global media events. Every text, every audio recording, every tear and accusation was dissected in real time on social media. Fans became jurors, commentators, and investigators. The internet was divided into two camps, those who believed Depp and those who sided with Heard. And while the jury ultimately ruled in favor of Depp in the US case, the damage had already been done. Hollywood, in its usual risk-averse manner, chose to step back. Warner Brothers recast Depp in Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, replacing him with Mads Mikkelsen. Disney, despite Depp's pivotal role in Pirates, dropped him from future projects. His reputation, once gleaming with accolades and admiration, was now clouded by controversy and cancellation. But here's where things got interesting. Despite the backlash, despite the professional setbacks, a wave of public support for Depp began to grow. Online petitions demanding his reinstatement in major franchises garnered millions of signatures. Celebrities like Javier Bardem, Penelope Cruz, and even his former partners like Winona Ryder and Vanessa Paradis publicly defended his character. What made Depp different from others who'd been cancelled was the loyalty of his fan base and the complexity of the situation. The court of public opinion started to reconsider its initial verdict. People watched the trials, listened to the recordings, and began to question whether Depp had truly been treated fairly. Meanwhile, Johnny Depp himself took a step back from the chaos of Hollywood. Rather than fight fire with fire, he chose a quieter path, one rooted in creativity and personal reinvention. He focused on music, performing with his band Hollywood Vampires and touring across Europe. He threw himself into painting, creating vibrant portraits of legends like Bob Dylan and Heath Ledger. And he continued to act, albeit in smaller art house films like Minamata, where he portrayed war photographer W. Eugene Smith in a haunting and powerful performance. These weren't just vanity projects. They were deeply personal expressions of a man reclaiming his narrative on his own terms. Now let's talk about the possibility of a return to the high seas. Could Johnny Depp actually come back as Jack Sparrow? After everything that went down? After publicly stating during the defamation trial that he wouldn't return to Disney for $300 million, others a million alpacas? On the surface, it seemed impossible, but in Hollywood, impossible is just another word for not yet. Behind the scenes, the machinery of Disney was reportedly shifting. Executives began to feel the financial sting of losing one of their most profitable characters. Despite producing 5 Pirates films with a combined gross of over $4.5 billion worldwide, attempts to reboot or continue the franchise without Depp faltered. Audiences didn't just love the world of pirates, they loved Jack Sparrow. Merchandising. Revenue declined, theme park engagement dwindled, even talk of a female-led reboot starring Margot Robbie quietly lost momentum. In short, Disney started to realize that the magic of pirates wasn't in the brand. It was in the man behind the compass. Jerry Bruckheimer, the powerhouse producer behind the franchise, added fuel to the fire in multiple interviews. He openly expressed his desire to work with Depp again, praising his talent and contribution to the films. In one particularly telling interview, he admitted that while Depp's return was not guaranteed, the door was not closed. That simple statement sent the internet into a frenzy. If Bruckheimer was on board, and if Disney was feeling the financial pressure, maybe, just maybe, there was a way back. Insiders began whispering about a 6th installment in the works, not a reboot, but a soft continuation. Something that could introduce new characters while allowing Depp to return, perhaps in a smaller role at first. Maybe a cameo, maybe a mentor figure, maybe a captain making a dramatic return. The details were murky, but the intent was clear. The studio was testing the waters, seeing how fans would react, gauging if the public had moved on from the scandal, and was ready to embrace Captain Jack once again. And the reaction? Overwhelming. Fans flooded social media with support. Artists began creating concept posters. YouTubers, TikTokers, Redditors. Everyone had theories and hopes. Some even claimed to have spotted Depp on set in secret meetings, though those reports were unverified. Still, the energy was electric, the kind of buzz that no PR team could manufacture. Johnny Depp himself began to soften too. While he remained clear that any return would have to be on his terms, he also spoke with a kind of quiet reverence about the character of Jack Sparrow. Over the years, through all the turbulence and upheaval, that character had become more than just a role. It had become part of Depp's identity, a trusted companion through the storms of fame and controversy. In multiple interviews after the trial, Depp didn't sound bitter or spiteful. He sounded nostalgic, like someone who had lost a close friend but hadn't stopped thinking about them. He described Jack not just as a pirate, but as a spirit, unpredictable, free, a little mad, but always kind beneath the rum-soaked bravado. There was emotion in his voice when he talked about what Jack Sparrow meant to people, especially children. It wasn't PR spin, it was genuine. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for that affection came in the form of unexpected visits to children's hospitals around the world. Wearing the full Captain Jack Sparrow ensemble, complete with tattered coat, beads, braids, eyeliner, and swagger, Depp would arrive unannounced, slipping into character and lighting up the faces of young patients. He didn't do this for headlines. There weren't media vans waiting outside or studio photographers snapping promo shots. In fact, most of the time, the only record came from grateful parents who posted heartfelt thank you messages online. For Depp, these visits were sacred. They were moments to connect with people on the most human level, using a fictional persona to bring real joy. And he never charged a dime for it. It wasn't about promotion, it wasn't about image rehabilitation, it was about love. A deep, enduring love, for the character, for the fans, and for the power of storytelling. And he didn't just stay in character. He became Jack in those rooms. Children would ask him questions about his ship or about the ocean, and Depp, through Sparrow, would respond with elaborate, whimsical tales, sometimes making himself laugh in the process. He'd stumble, wave his hands, and slur his words in that charming Sparrow way, never once breaking the illusion. In those moments, Jack Sparrow wasn't just a Disney property. He was real. He was there. And for children facing painful realities, that magic mattered more than any blockbuster could. That's the part of Depp's story that critics often overlook. Even after Disney cut ties with him, he didn't abandon the character. If anything, he seemed to cling to Jack more tightly, as if the pirate persona offered him a lifeline. Something pure that remained untouched by scandal and judgment. It was also his way of staying connected to the people who had always believed in him. While Hollywood debated his future, Depp quietly reminded his fans that some roles are more than just contracts, they're relationships. But there's another layer to this loyalty. It wasn't just about nostalgia or even fan service. For Depp, Jack Sparrow represented something larger, freedom. In the earlier Pirates films, that theme was always central to the character. Jack wasn't the strongest or the smartest, but he was the freest. He refused to be tied down, manipulated, or owned. He ran from the law, from commitments, from the past, and yet somehow he always ended up doing the right thing. That paradox mirrored Depp's own life in many ways. He had never played by Hollywood's rules. He turned down big-money roles if the scripts bored him. He chose risky, eccentric characters over traditional leading men. He made enemies in high places, and he paid the price. But like Jack, he kept sailing. What's remarkable is that even with all the personal and professional losses, Depp's connection to Jack Sparrow remained unbroken. After the trial, when he toured with his band across Europe and displayed his art in galleries, fans still came dressed as pirates. They held signs begging for his return to the role. Some even brought their children, passing the torch to a new generation of Sparrow enthusiasts. It was clear that Jack Sparrow was bigger than the movies. He had become an icon, a cultural touchstone, and for many, he was inseparable from Johnny Depp. Yet Depp never used that loyalty to pressure Disney. He didn't launch a campaign or demand public apologies. He didn't start a #war or file lawsuits. He simply waited. He focused on his music, his painting, his independent film projects, things that brought him peace. But in every public appearance, in every signed autograph or whispered interview, there was a sense that Jack Sparrow was never far from his heart. And when interviewers broached the subject, carefully, cautiously, Depp always answered with a mixture of warmth and firmness. He made it clear that he wasn't opposed to returning as Jack Sparrow, but it would have to be under the right circumstances. Respect was non-negotiable. Creativity had to come first. There would be no rushed cash grabs, no shallow cameos. If Jack was coming back, it had to mean something. It had to feel earned. That stance only deepened fans' respect for him. He wasn't chasing relevance. He was protecting legacy. You could almost see the shift happening in real time. Studios that once distanced themselves from Depp began testing the waters again. Brands reached out. Filmmakers expressed interest, but through it all, Depp stayed grounded. He turned down roles that didn't speak to him. He continued to play small European venues with his band, far from the Hollywood spotlight. And yet, the love for Jack Sparrow never faded. If anything, it grew stronger. There's a rare kind of humility in a man who knows he's beloved for, a role he no longer technically owns and still chooses to honor that role, not for profit, but for connection. Depp's relationship with Jack Sparrow is a reminder that art doesn't live in boardrooms or balance sheets. It lives in people, in the laughter of a sick child, in the memories of a fan who dressed up for the midnight premiere, in the echo of a line quoted for the 1,000th time with a smile. That's why, when the rumors of his return to Pirates of the Caribbean started gaining traction, they hit differently. This wasn't just about reviving a franchise. It was about healing something, about bringing a beloved character back to life in a way that honored the journey, the pain, and the perseverance of the man behind the eyeliner. Depp had been to the edge and back, and through it all, Jack Sparrow had remained with him, just off stage, waiting for the next adventure. There's something poetic about that. In an industry where actors often chase paychecks and spotlight, here was a man still, devoted to the very role that made him a legend, even when the machine behind it turned its back on him. And it's that kind of authenticity that keeps people rooting for him. Let's be real. This wouldn't just be a comeback for Johnny Depp. It would be a cultural moment, a signal that sometimes, just sometimes, the industry listens to the audience. That redemption is possible, that great characters and great performances can outlive scandal and scrutiny. It wouldn't just benefit Depp. It would benefit Disney, Bruckheimer, and the entire Pirates universe. Of course, there are still hurdles. Legal settlements, brand image considerations, and public relations concerns remain. Depp may not want to return if he feels the company hasn't truly acknowledged the way they distanced themselves, and Disney might be cautious about re-entering potentially controversial waters. But what's different now is the willingness, on both sides, to entertain the possibility, to at least talk. And that, more than anything, shows just how far we've come from those dark days of uncertainty. Johnny Depp is not the first actor to face public fallout, but what sets him apart is how he's chosen to handle it. Quietly, creatively, with grace and grit, and as the tide continues to turn in his favor, the world waits to see if that black sail will rise again, and if Jack Sparrow, compass in hand and rum in heart, will return to steal the screen once more. So what do you think? Is the world ready for Captain Jack's return? Should Disney bring Depp back into the fold and give fans the reunion they've been waiting for? Or is it time for the franchise to move in a new direction? There's no easy answer, but one thing's for sure, the conversation isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. And if you're as intrigued by this as we are, stay tuned. There's plenty more to explore, from potential castings to script leaks, filming rumors, and fan petitions that are only gaining traction. This story has sails, and it's picking up wind. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, give it a like, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in this unbelievable Hollywood saga. Thanks for being here. And remember, not all treasure is silver and gold. Sometimes it's a second chance.